What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the final week of NFL picks for the 2023 regular season. What a ride it's been, all 18 weeks, picking these games, talking about all 272 games now. It's been absolutely amazing doing it this season. The growth, all the support, appreciate it all. We got one more week left. I will be doing a playoff predictions, how I think the playoffs will go out. I probably won't pick it week by week. I will put out, however, next week when we know what the bracket is, when it's officially set, what it looks like, I will do one playoff prediction video, how I think the entire playoffs go, who I think wins each round, and who I think is going to win Super Bowl 58. But with that being said, got one more week left of picks. Let's get right into it. Last week, I had my best week of the entire season. Best week, I think, doing picks in a while from what I can remember. I went 13-3, overall record 159-97. So still have a shot to finish with under 100 losses. But one way or another, it's been a pretty good season. Lock of the week 12-5 and upset of the week 7-10. Got both my lock and upset of the week correct last week. So without further ado, let's get into the final week of picks. Week 18. I always say week 18, week 1, and week 18, anything can happen. And week 18, I think that especially stands for, because you have so many teams that are, teams that could still be fighting for playoff position. Maybe have clinched playoff position. And even the worst teams in the NFL, it's the final week of the season. They want to finish their season strong. They don't want to finish this. There's going to be a lot of guys fighting for roster spots for next season and moving on. So that's why I say anything can happen in week 18. But let's get right into it. Saturday at 4:30. The schedule was set last night, and we found out, obviously, we knew we were going to have two Saturday games, a Sunday night game, and then your typical 1 o'clock, 4:25 game. We found out the 4:30 Saturday game is Pittsburgh Steelers. Once again, Mike Tomlin, a non-losing season, 9-7. Pittsburgh, they're fighting for their playoff lives. And the Baltimore Ravens, they clinched the number 1 seed last week. I would probably anticipate that you're going to rest a lot of starters if you're Baltimore, or maybe not. Maybe they do play those starters a little bit, because last time Baltimore's in this situation, they rested all their starters. They came out a little flat. So maybe you see those starters play a little bit, but I wouldn't anticipate Lamar Jackson and the top guys for the Ravens are playing past like maybe the first quarter, maybe halfway through the second. I wouldn't anticipate that at all. So I really feel like what the story is just going to be, Baltimore's going to rest a lot of guys, especially in the second half, and Pittsburgh's going to be able to pull away. So I'm going to go ahead, pick the Steelers here. I think Pittsburgh finishes with 10 wins on the year. Definitely having a shot to make the playoffs, obviously, depending on the rest of the results that happen on Sunday and whatever happens on Sunday, 1 o'clock, 4:25. I think that Sunday night game could have implications on Pittsburgh's playoff chances as well. And we'll talk all about that, what a game you have there. But I'm going to go ahead and say the Steelers win. I expect Baltimore. They have nothing else to play for this week, so they'll probably rest a bunch of starters in the second half. Pittsburgh pulls away. Saturday night, you have a win and in scenario. And who would have thought, when you saw the teams that would be playing each other week 18, when that was released all the way back in May, this would be one of your primetime games. I don't think anyone thought that, but here we are, and these are two teams that are definitely deserving of this Saturday night spot. It's a win and in scenario. And the AFC South is still alive for both these teams, depending on a win and what happens in the Jacksonville Jaguars-Titans game on Sunday. But you have the Houston Texans. What a season C.J. Stroud has had going into Indianapolis. What a job Shane Steichen has done with that team. Gardner Minshew, they lost Anthony Richardson earlier in the year. Minshew has came in, and he has not missed a beat. He's done just enough, and that Colts team has been winning. and they find themselves in a win-and-in scenario here in Indianapolis. I believe the last time these two teams met were all the way back in week 2, and I think the Colts got that game. This is a very tough game to pick. You could definitely see either team winning, but it feels like to me that the Houston Texans and how much they have came on and how much growth that they have made since week 2 and CJ Stroud, it feels like this is going to be their game, that they're going to come away, they're going to win in a close one to clinch that playoff spot, pretty much dashing the Colts' playoff chances, but nonetheless, still give credit to both of these teams. But talk about the job DeMeco Ryans has done and the amazing rookie season by CJ Stroud. So I'm going to go ahead and say I think the Texans win this one and they get into the playoffs. Heading over into the Sunday games. First game we have, we're just talking about Indianapolis and Houston. The winner of that game could very well be affected by the result of this game. Jacksonville Jaguars, for much of the season, it looked like they had the AFC South on lock. But in the month of December, they really did start to falter. But they got that win last week versus Carolina. All they got to do is win, and they win the AFC South. Going to I know it says Houston, going to Tennessee to take on the Titans. It's been a very disappointing season. But with that being said, to me, you could definitely, this is one of those scenarios where you look at and you say, the Titans, they don't have anything to play for, but they can spoil the Jaguars season. You got a lot of guys. You would maybe assume Mike Vrabel is back, but you don't know for sure. You want to spoil Jacksonville's season. A lot of guys are going to be playing for roster spots. So the Jaguars know what's at stake. They've been in this situation before. And I'm going to go ahead, pick the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they wrap up the AFC South here. Texans are in as a wild card team. Just to me, really feels like that's going to be the case here. Jacksonville comes out. I don't know if Trevor Lawrence plays, but one way or another, they probably really rely on that run game and that defense to take care of business. And they come out of this game, AFC South champions for the second straight year. Next game here, the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, it's Kirk Cousins went out when they were just getting hot. Josh Dobbs, talk about, a 2-week roller coaster, and then that just went off the rails. They started Jaron Hall, started Nick Mullins. It's been a very up and down season, but they still have a very outside chance to get into the playoffs. But they got to go to Detroit and take on a Lions team that isn't playing for anything, not because it's the same old Lions. They're already NFC North champions. We all know the story of the Detroit Lions, how amazing it's been. So with that being said, to me, this is a game this is one of those games that is tough to pick, where you could maybe see the Lions resting some starters. But then again, after what happened in Dallas, you don't know how complacent Dan Campbell is going to want to be. Dan Campbell is not a complacent guy. He's going to send those guys out there to play. So I could definitely see if it gets out of hand early, maybe they rest some guys. And plus, Minnesota, the quarterback situation is just god-awful there. So, talk about a mess there. So, with that being said, I'm going to pick the Lions here to win. Go to 12-5 on the season. Minnesota finishes off the season 7-10. And they're going to have to hope to get Kirk Cousins back in the offseason because, man, has it been rough for Minnesota down the stretch. This next game, oh, wow. I can't believe I'm saying it, but we're still in it. The Falcons are still in it for the NFC South. So are the Saints. Depending on the result in the Tampa Bay Carolina game, this could be for the NFC South. And I'm going to go ahead and say this. I can talk. I'll talk about this game later in the week. So I'm just going to leave it at this. I'm going to pick the Falcons here. Do I feel confident? Yeah, I don't feel the most confident in the pick, but I'm going to pick the Falcons. It's the Aints. We got to go down to New Orleans and beat the Aints. Sweep them. Get that sweep over them for the first time in 7 years. It's got to be done. We got to sweep them eventually. Shut them up. And then maybe we're then looking, well, the games will be going on at the same time, but hope the result in Charlotte turns out in our favor. Next game here, though, you have the New England Patriots. This is probably Bill Belichick's final game coaching the Patriots. And the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers went out week 1, and it's been a disappointment ever since then, up and down season. But the Jets have not had an answer at quarterback, and that is what has killed their season. So this is honestly going to be that type of game that I honestly think is probably going to be a shit show. It's probably going to be hard to watch for anyone. But I'm going to go ahead and say I feel like the New York Jets are going to win. It feels like for the Bill Belichick era to end in New England, it'd only be so fitting it ends in a loss to the Jets, to me. So I'm going to actually go ahead and say I think the Jets win this game, go to 7-10 on the year. New England finishes off 4-13. This is probably it for Bill Belichick. They're in Foxborough. What a run it has been. It's not going to be the same watching the Patriots, period, without Brady or Belichick there. But it's the end of an era. That's the bottom line. It's the end of an era. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Jets here. Here we go. This next game. And I'm going to tell you what. As I said, I think this is the perfect example of the Carolina Panthers have had a god-awful season. It might be the worst season in franchise history for the Panthers. From just the mess that you have with David Tepper to how underwhelming it's been for Bryce Young and how, up and down of a rookie season he's had, firing Frank Reich. You would think that this is a game that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 8-8, and all they have to do is win and get in. You would think that this is a game they easily can win. You would definitely think that this is a game they should easily win, but it's week 18. Anything can happen. A lot of those guys in Carolina are going to be playing for their NFL careers. And I honestly feel like the Panthers are going to win this game. I really do. I could be stupid. Tampa Bay could win. They could win the NFC South. And logically, that is what should happen. But to me, it feels like this is going to be a game that the Carolina Panthers are going to come out, play with a purpose. They're going to want to finish off their season strong. And I'm going to pick the Panthers here. And that would mean I'm not going to get into it, man. I'll talk about it all later in the week. I'm going to pick the Panthers, and I picked the Falcons earlier. If you know, you know. How confident do I feel? Yeah, not very much, but anything is possible. It's week 18. Anything can happen. So, yeah, with that being said, I'm going to pick the Panthers here. Next game here, Cleveland Browns. They've pretty much wrapped up everything that there is to wrap up. Going to Cincinnati to face the Bengals, final week of the year. And just to be honest, man, it's after Joe Burrow went out, that Bengals season really had no hope from the start. As soon as he went out, I mean, you got to give credit. They did fight. They tried to keep that season afloat as long as they could, but they just couldn't do it. So they have Cleveland coming in final week of the year. This is one of those games that's just tough to pick. You could see either team winning. I'm going to go ahead and say I think the Browns win. I could see them playing stars for like a half, but this just feels like a situation that Cincinnati could definitely win this game. That's why I say week 18. It's always tough to pick, but right now I'm going to go ahead and I just feel like the Browns going to win this game. Heading into the 425 window, and you got a game that has a ton of playoff implications for the Green Bay Packers. I think it's winning you're in for Green Bay. So They know what's staring down the barrel, but they have a very hot Bears team coming in who started off the season absolutely awful, but since then have been playing some damn good football. Justin Fields, I mean, I would think Justin Fields has secured a roster spot one way or another as a starting quarterback for one team. He's trying to do it for the Chicago Bears. And in this situation, to me, this feels like a prime situation for Justin Fields to be able to go out, go into Lambeau Field, and secure your job as the Bears quarterback next year. And I think it's going to happen. I really honestly feel like the Bears are going to go into Soldier Field and beat the Packers. I really honestly see it. Green Bay, it's been an up and down season. They're a young team. The future is bright in Green Bay, but to me, I feel like the Bears are fighting for just as much as the Packers, especially Justin Fields. He's fighting to be the Bears quarterback next year. He's looking to get paid pretty soon. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Bears here. I think they're going to dash Green Bay's playoff hopes and open up that spot for potentially another team in the NFC to go and take that 7th seed. Next game here, Dallas Cowboys. They really got a ton of help from the Cardinals yesterday because now they are in a situation where all they got to do is win this game and they win the NFC East. There has not been a repeat winner of the NFC East in 20 years. Philly won it last year. So I think it makes all the sense in the world Dallas wins it this year. Now, they went to Washington last year. They did get beat by the Commanders or whatever you want to call them then. But this Washington team, it's just like it's kind of like they're lifeless. And Dallas has a ton to play for. The Cowboys are a good football team. Like, this is honestly, I feel like if there were to be any year that the Cowboys can finally break through in the postseason, it has to be this year. And I feel like they're going to come out and they're going to win this game, win the NFC East. What a blown opportunity by the Eagles to take a hold of that division. But I truly, honestly feel like the Cowboys come out, win this game. They wrap up the NFC East here. Next game you have the Broncos. It's been an up and down season. They made a good push to get in the past few weeks, but they just couldn't do it. But there is a lot of drama surrounding that team right now. And the Raiders, I think Antonio Pierce has already wrapped up that job. If he hasn't, I don't know why. I think it goes to show you that the Raiders are seriously just a dumb organization if they don't give him that job for next year, because he has those players bought in. I think this is going to be another situation. They're going to come out. They're going to try to put a bow on Antonio Pierce having that job for next year. And I think it's going to happen. I think the Raiders pick up the win here. Probably going to be a sloppy ball game, but the Raiders pick up the win here and beat the Broncos, go to 8-9 on the year. And that should, I would think that should be enough to secure Antonio Pierce that job. Heading over to MetLife, and you have the Eagles going in there to face the Giants. To me, it really, Philadelphia blew an opportunity in all likelihood. Now, they would need Dallas to fuck up big time, or they're going to be stuck going to the winner of the NFC South Stadium for wild card weekend. So, yeah, that was a very tough loss for the Eagles yesterday. But I do feel like this is a game that they're going to come out, and it feels like they're going to take care of business. I think if I feel confident in any game this week, I don't know, this sounds weird, but I just feel confident that the Eagles will beat the Giants. I feel like that's probably your one given this week, that I definitely see the Eagles coming out and beating the Giants. There could be some other ones, but I just feel confident enough to say that this is lock of the week. Eagles finish off 12-5. Giants, it's been a rough season there. Finish off 5-12. Next game here, the Seattle Seahawks. They had a tough loss versus the Pittsburgh Steelers last week. They're hanging on to playoff hopes by a thread. They go to Arizona to take on a Cardinals team that is playing with a lot of pride. They want to finish off that season strong. They went into Philly last week and beat the Eagles. So they're going to look to spoil the playoff hopes of the Seattle Seahawks here. And with that being said, though, I feel like this is going to be a game because if Chicago does go and beat Green Bay, which I did say was going to happen, and I think will happen. Obviously, anything's possible. Week 18, anything can happen. The Seahawks have a lot to play for, and I do feel like the Seahawks will come out and win. And if Chicago wins, I think that opens up that 7th seed for them, and I think they would swoop in and be the number 7 seed. So I'm going to go ahead and say Seattle wins, finishes above 500. The Cardinals, it's been a tough season, but you got to say, man, they were in every single game. They gave it a lot of fight. You know, that team wasn't built to succeed from the start, but they got some big upset. They got a big upset win in Philadelphia that they can hang their hat on. And I think they probably stick with Kyler. We'll see where they go in the offseason, but I'm going to go ahead and say Seattle wins here. Next game here, the San Francisco 49ers. Playoffs run through Levi. They already locked up that number 1 seed. The Rams, they've pretty much locked up their playoff spot. I don't know if their seeding is officially pretty much locked down yet, but I would have to assume you're probably going to see both teams resting a lot of starters as this game goes on. The 49ers are probably going to want to stay more fresh. So I'm just going to go ahead and say I feel like the 49ers win. This is another game. It could go either way, but I just feel like the 49ers, they're going to pull away with the win here. I would probably expect to see some Sam Darnold in this game, and it'll be interesting to see. But one way or another, I'm going to go ahead and say that the 49ers pick up the win here, finish off 13-4. Rams finish off 9-8, and they'll prepare for a wild card game next weekend versus either Detroit or Dallas. Next game here, Kansas City. It's been an up and down season, but they did clinch the AFC West. So they pretty much, I think they're locked into the 3 seed at this point in all likelihood. So with that being said, go to the Chargers. It's been a very rough season there. They lost Justin Herbert. They've had a ton of injuries. Had to fire Brandon Staley. To me, it really does feel like even though the Chargers, you could definitely see anything happening in this game. This just feels like a game the Chiefs win. There really doesn't need to be much explanation. I can honestly see the Chiefs coming out and getting to a very hot start, and then from there just running away with this game versus the Chargers here. And then Sunday Night Football, game 272. This is, I don't know if there could be a better game for Sunday night. The AFC East is on the line. Buffalo, Miami. Buffalo really needs to win and get in. And Miami, they can lock up the 2 seed with a win. There's a lot riding on this game. And when I tell you this game was so tough to pick, it really was. And I could very well, and this is for all the games in week 18. And for every single game that there is, this has probably been the toughest game to pick. I could see this one going either way, but I'm going to ride with the home team here. I can definitely see myself being wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and pick the Miami Dolphins here to win the AFC East. I don't really feel confident in it, but I'm going to go with the Dolphins here. Buffalo, I don't know if that will leave them in or out of the playoffs. Obviously, we'll have to see how the rest of the weekend shakes out. But I would definitely probably say regardless, Buffalo, they are one of the hottest teams. But one way or another, man, it's going to be a very tough atmosphere to go into and win in Miami on a Sunday night with that division on the line going down to South Florida. So with that being said, I'm going to pick the Miami Dolphins here. And that is it. What a season it has been picking all these games. I appreciate you all for your support. Everyone who's came in, interacted, viewed, liked, whatever you did. Appreciate you all. I will be putting out a playoff pick'em video here sometime, probably later next week. The official playoff picks how I think each game goes, who I think wins the Super Bowl, all that good stuff. I will be putting out a lot of Falcons content, talking all about the mess that there is in the NFC South. And yeah, man, it's so tough to think we're at the end of the season. Doesn't feel like we should be, but another good season overall for the NFL coming to an end this week, regular season at least. That being said, I will see you guys in the next one.